Hey, what's up everyone, it's Mir with another video. I'm sure you've all noticed it, but in Street Fighter 6, especially since its release, but even before that with the betas, a lot of tech has been posted online, and one of the most common sorts of setups that you see are safe jumps. And the reason why that is because safe jumps are actually very practical and useful in Street Fighter 6. And although you might have heard of them before, you might not know how they actually behave and what they do. So this is what we're gonna cover in this video. In layman's terms, a safe jump is a form of setup that lets you strike an opponent with a jump in on their wake up without them being able to anti-air you for it. And in fact, if they try, you can even block the anti-air attempt and punish them for it, as I'll demonstrate right here. If I set Ryu to do a Shoryuken and I do the same exact setup, you'll see that I can block in time and then I can score whatever punish I want. Now, one of the reasons why safe jumps are so useful in Street Fighter 6 is because they have the benefits of a melee attack, which means that you can stop wake-up buttons or any kind of movement with the reward of a full jump in, while also at the same time, unlike many melees, they're also safe from reversals. Another reason why safe jumps are so useful and so prevalent in Street Fighter 6 is that the two rise options that you have access to, the quick rise or recover in place as the game calls it and recover backwards, they actually have the same exact timing, so the setup will work on both rises, as I can demonstrate here. So you see that worked on a back rise, and if I set it to recover in place, it worked just the same. But how's this possible, you may ask? Shouldn't an anti-air attack just be able to snipe me out of the air when I do my setup? Like, why does this work? So, to understand why a safe jump works, we need to talk about jump recovery. In Street Fighter 6, jumps have 3 frames of landing recovery. This is true for back jumps, neutral jumps, forward jumps, all of them. And during these frames of landing recovery, you cannot move. However, you're able to block and tech throws. So I have Ryu here set to do a jump and then block. And you'll see that unless I hit him in the air, I actually cannot hit him on the ground. You will be able to block all of my attacks, and in this situation it will also be able to tech throws, assuming that of course he's doing it. I have to actually hit him out of the air if I want to punish this jump. It's impossible for me to do it on the landing recovery. However, if you do something in the air, like a normal or an air throw for example, you forgo your ability to block or tech when you land. And in Street Fighter 6 there are also punish counter frames for this landing recovery, so any attack that hits you during these recovery frames has extra frame advantage and damage, as I'll demonstrate in a second here. So I have Ryu here set to do a jumping attack that whiffs, just to make the demonstration a little bit easier. But I can hit Ryu on the landing recovery and hit him grounded, as you see there. I get a punish counter. Ryu's not flipping out in the air, as if I hit him in the air. And this is not true just for lows, I can do it with any kind of attack. And in fact, you can do this with throws and you'll score a punish counter throw, just like that. Keep in mind that certain moves like dive kicks and other air mobility options might have some extra landing recovery, so what I said only really applies to normal jumps. You probably heard this situation being referred to as trip guard, or more correctly, giving up the ability to trip guard. And this is referring specifically to your inability to block attacks when you land. Specifically was for knockdown lows, as this term comes from the Street Fighter 2 days where jump recovery rules were a little bit different, but it's stuck around ever since. In practical terms, for jump-ins, what this means is that the invulnerable anti-air doesn't actually have to hit you in the air to punish the jump, but can also punish these 3 frames of jump recovery, since it's invulnerable will go through the attack anyway and hit you as you land. As you see, that one was a counter hit as it hit Ryu when he was still in the air. But that one was a punish counter, which means I hit Ryu on the landing recovery frames of the attack. The reason why that is that anti-air attacks do not start up instantly. In the case of Rashid's OD Mixer, for example, it's a 6-frame startup attack. So what if we create a situation where our jump attack is vulnerable for the least amount of time possible? Will we be able to avoid this reversal attack? In the case of a knockdown, we want our opponent to wake up into the attack, basically like a melee attack on the ground, so that they have no time to act and immediately land the frame after. So anything like, say for example, sweep into a neutral jump, it would be no good because we don't have enough frames, and I can demonstrate how, Ryu gonna anti-air us every time for doing something like that. So we need a specific setup where we land on the last possible frame. If we land an attack on the latest possible frame, like something like that, for example, you can see that there's only one red active frame in the frame meter over there. It means that we will have that one active frame that hits the opponent, and then the 3 recovery frames where we cannot block. So that means we have a window of 4 frames where we can get hit, and then we're safe. As a result, what that means is that in Street Fighter 6, with the right setup, like something that I showed before, like this for example, we can be safe against any 5-frame reversals or slower, because we only have 4 frames in which we're vulnerable, and again demonstrated right here. And as you can see, I was able to block Ryu's retaliation attack. Most invulnerable anti-air attacks or reversals in Street Fighter 6 are in fact 5 frames or slower, but there's one notable exception, which is Lily. And Lily, with her unique mechanic, the Windclad stock, actually has a 4-frame DP. So that setup from before, you can see how I get punish countered, and that's because it's impossible to safe jump anything that is 4 frames or faster in this game. You'll notice though that when she doesn't have a Windclad stock and I do that same exact setup, I'm able to actually block in time, and basically it is a safe jump because the DP is 6 frames in this situation. Anyway, now that we know that it's possible, we need to figure out a setup to land our safe jump. Luckily enough, we can use the power of math to find the correct one, and even though it looks a little bit complicated, just try to follow along and I'm sure it will make sense. So most characters have the same frame data for a jump, which includes 4 pre-jump frames. That's the amount of time you spend on the ground, and you can get hit grounded during those frames. Then you have 38 frames that you spend in the air. So we have a total of 42 so far. And then if you press a jumping attack in the air, you actually spend 1 extra frame in the air. So we have 43. What that means is that we're looking for a knockdown that is plus 42 specifically. So that setup from before, you can see that it says advantage 42 frames, which means that we will hit the opponent the moment they wake up, and then we will immediately land afterwards. What I did right there is a frame kill. So when I land this and press this, basically I am using the duration of the standing light punch as an opportunity to waste some time so that I have the perfect setup afterwards, because if I don't do that, you'll see that my advantage is plus 56, which is not what we need. So when I whiff the standing light punch, if I do it correctly, I get plus 42, which is exactly what we're looking for, and this guarantees that the setup is, you know, always the same time every time, as opposed to having to eyeball it and potentially mess it up. There are some characters that have different frame data for their jumps, and I will put it on the screen with the relevant information. Like for example, Zangief has 1 extra pre-jump frame. So in this case, if you wanted a perfect safe jump, instead of finding plus 42 like we did for Rashid, you'd have to find plus 43 instead. If you can't find the perfect setup, it's not the end of the world. Not every character has a 5-frame invulnerable reversal. Some are slower, some characters only have supers and they also tend to be slow. For example, DJ's fastest reversal is his up kicks, and those are 6 frames instead of 5. So we have an extra frame to play with and still be safe. So we only need a plus 41 frames knockdown. So this is fairly interesting because Guile has a combo that mid-screen and approaching the corner gives you plus 42 frame advantage, which would be perfect for a safe jump. However, when you're already in the corner, the combo gives you only plus 41 because the flash kick hits a little bit sooner. But as I mentioned before, it doesn't matter for DJ because his up kicks are 6 frames of startup. So if I do the safe jump here, you can see how I'm able to block in time and then punish DJ on the way down. There's an interesting consequence to these plus 41 setups where if you hit an opponent in the corner and then you jump at them, they can just walk out of it, which is kind of funny in its own right. So to prevent this from happening, what you do is that you do a neutral jump instead, and this will work just normally as a safe jump, and it will prevent the opponent from escaping by walking away. So safe jumps are great tools to keep going on offense while at the same time shutting down defensive options, because if the opponent gets hit, you get a full jump in, so the reward is quite high, but you don't risk getting hit by a reversal, so they're very, very practical. However, they aren't without weaknesses. As I mentioned before, any 4-frame invulnerable attack just will beat them outright. It's impossible to safe jump those in Street Fighter 6. They also lose to fast armored attacks. So right now I have Honda set to do OD Headbutt, which is armor on frame 1, so you can use it as a reversal. And you see that it's 9 frame startup, so you wouldn't expect this to beat our safe jump. However, if I do our safe jump, you'll see that I actually get punish countered. And the reason why that is because there's some hit stop when I hit the opponent when the armor is triggered, and Rashid stays in the air for that amount of time, which lets the headbutt actually hit me before I fully recover, thus punishing me. As I mentioned before, it's important that the attack is frame 1 invincible or armored in this case. I have Marisa do her Scutum as she wakes up, which is not frame 1 armor, and you'll see that if I do one of my setups, I actually just beat her outright because, again, it's like hitting a meaty attack on the opponent waking up. But if she does an OD Scutum, which has armor on frame 1, you'll see that the same exact setup loses to it as I get hit and get knocked down. The damage is not very high, but the fact that you can beat a safe jump with this is very, very valuable. Not every armor move works against safe jumps, however, they have to be fast enough. So for example, here I have Marisa set to do OD Gladius, and you see how I actually can block in time. So you need to know which ones you can use against safe jumps, otherwise the opponent can blow you up for them. And this is the same reason as to why you shouldn't wake up with Drive Impact, because Drive Impact is so slow that if I do that same exact setup from before, you'll see how much time I have to react to it and then blow you up for having tried to do DI. So that's definitely not a good option at all. Another option you have is that you can wake up with an attempt at a perfect parry, and you'll see that this is actually fairly easy to land because the setup itself is consistent, so you know the timing of the safe jump. You notice also that the perfect parry doesn't actually guarantee a punish. Marisa is only +2 in this situation, which means it's her turn. She can maybe attack me with lights or try to throw me in the corner, but nothing is guaranteed. Even if you screw up the timing here and you get, like a normal parry, you're still getting some drive gauge back, and then you can release parry, and it's basically as if you had just blocked, so it's not that big of a risk. What the opponent can do if they notice that you're trying to perfect parry all their safe jumps is that instead of doing their safe jumps with an attack, which would get them perfect parried, they don't do an attack and they land and throw you instead, which gives them a punish counter throw. But the fact that you have basically forced your opponent to mix it up on the offense when normally they would just do, like a safe jump every time is already a win, because you're altering the way that they have to handle their offense. So it's an option that is definitely worth to keep in mind. Characters with command parries like JP and his OD Amnesia, which is active on frame 1, can use them to defend versus safe jumps. However, you have to keep in mind in the specific case of JP that the opponent recovers before you do, and because the bombs are not guaranteed, you might still have to guess, but it is an option to keep in mind nonetheless. Well, hopefully now you know more about safe jumps. They're a very useful tool in Street Fighter 6 as the reward can be quite high for landing a safe jump, and even on block you get to continue your pressure. And this is particularly useful in a game where there's so many defensive options and characters have a lot of reversals. Also, offense doesn't have that many plus moves, so in general they're really, really useful to add to your repertoire for whichever character you play. With the information contained in this video, you could also come up with setups of your own, so you might find out something about your character that you didn't know they had. Let me know in the comments if you found this video useful, and of course if you have any more questions. We always look at the comments under our videos, so don't be shy to ask. And if you like our content, check out our channel. There's plenty of guides already there and plenty more to come about individual characters or in general Street Fighter 6 mechanics. And I guess I'll see you all in another video. Have fun with Street Fighter 6, everyone. Bye bye.